mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shalom. There were philosophers who said that reality is out there. It's the object that I touch. And there were philosophers who said that reality is in here, in the knowing self. And then there came a wonderful Jewish thinker named Martin Buber who said neither one is right. What is real is the between space, the holy space between us. And if we can sanctify the between space, then God will have a home in the world. So at every service, Rabbi Schulweis asked us to stand up. And the first holy act of the service was not to welcome God, was not even to praise God. It was to welcome and to praise the person who sits beside you. So turn next to the people beside you and behind you and around you and wish them good Shabbos and hello and give them a hug. Now, Rabbi Schulweis was born in the Bronx, but we can forgive him for that because in 1952 he came to California and he learned that in California we do things differently in the Bronx. So put your arms around the people beside you and draw them close, which is the way it's done in California. And now you know where God lives.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amelachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Malachei Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amelachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Yir Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amelachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, Akadosh, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Nil Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, Akadosh, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Nil Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, Akadosh, Baruch Hu, Zeichem Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, Akadosh, Baruch Hu. You may be seated.
Please be seated. Open your prayer books, if you got one, to page 15. But don't get in the way of clapping. You ready?
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. Naria, naria, letsuri, sheknu nekadma, bavana, betzuda. Naria, naria, letsuri, sheknu, babizmiro, naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. Ki el gadol Adonai, o melech gadol al Elohim. Ki el gadol Adonai, o melech gadol al Elohim. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. Naria, naria, letzor yishenu nekadma fana betzuda. Naria, naria, letzori yishenu abizmiro naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, Adonai. 40 shana akut bedor, va'omar to'e levavhem, v'hem lo yadu derachai, asher nishbati ve'api, im yemoun el menuchati.
We don't think of ourselves as a seafaring people. But I guess the closest Jews get to the sea is the cruise boat buffet, right? But once upon a time, we lived on an ocean. We lived on a sea, the Mediterranean. And fishermen would go out into the sea. And you imagine, all this sea dotted with all these fishermen all over the Mediterranean. And then late in the afternoon, the wind picks up, and the sea begins to rock and to wave. And the fishermen call to each other that it's time to go back. Time to come in. Bring the nets in, raise the sails, and sail back into the land, because it's Friday and Shabbat is coming. Page 16, count up 1, 2, 3, 4 lines from the bottom. In the middle of the line, Yiram, Hayam, Umila'o. Even the sea raises its voice to give praise to God. Say Yiram,
Yiram,
Hayam, Umila'o. All you got to do is sing what the cantor sings. And you got to rock because you're on a boat and the waves are. Rock a little bit. That's it. Don't get seasick. Here we go.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Levil ve'yoshveva. Yiram hayam u'milo.
Feel the waves.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Levil ve'yoshveva. Yiram hayam u'milo. Neharot yimcha uchaf lei 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 Chanarim yeraneinu Neharot yimcha uchaf lei 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 Chanarim yeraneinu Yiram hayam u'milo
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Levil ve'yoshveva Yiram hayam u'milo Neharonim chaf lei 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 Achararim yeraneinu Neharonim chaf lei 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 Yachararim yeraneinu Yiram hayam u'milo
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Levil ve'yoshveva Yiram hayam u'milo. Let's try that middle section again. Neharonim chaf lei 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 Yachararim yeraneinu Neharonim chaf lei 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 Yachararim yeraneinu Yiram hayam u'milo
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Yiram hayam u'milo
Yiram hayam u'milo.
Levil ve'yoshveva Yiram hayam u'milo.
On the next page, the last two lines. Or so.
Lay 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 Yay lay 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 Yay 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 lay 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 Tzadikim Adonai ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Zechut tzadikim Adonai ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Ay, 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 זרוע לצדיק אור זרוע
In 2 weeks and 45 hours and 35 minutes, my son is getting married. 2 weeks, 45 hours, 35 minutes means we're trying to fit all the cousins who hate each other at a certain number of tables. You can't sit her with him. They haven't talked to each other in 23 years. Yeah, seat them together, what the heck. You're fighting with the florist because the florist is a ganef. You hope the suits and dresses and tuxedos all fit. The caterer has run out of Chilean sea bass. Will cod do? This is the romance of getting married 2 weeks, 45 hours, and 35 minutes away. And it only gets worse as the days get closer because the pressure mounts and the bills go up. And it gets more, and then comes the day of the wedding, and you're running around crazy, trying to find all the things that need to get found and getting everybody where they need to get, and the relatives who were coming into Los Angeles International Airport who were sure you were going to run right down there and pick them up have to find their own way to the wedding, and the photographer wants all the family together, and why isn't anyone smiling? And that's what a wedding is like. And then comes the coordinator who speaks only a little English, asking you, please lining up now. Come on, we have to get you lined up. And the music is playing, but it's the wrong music, and it's too fast, and you're walking too slow. And why can't you guys take this with any seriousness? And where's your boutonniere? And you're wearing those shoes, and pull up that fly. And that's the way the wedding is. Until the moment when the bride appears at the top of the aisle. And then it all stops. And it's perfect. And it's just perfect. And she stands there for a moment, she looking at us, not knowing what we're looking at. Because what we're looking at isn't just a young woman at this profoundly powerful moment of her life and our lives. She is a doorway to everything that is beautiful and glorious and right in the world. She has an aura. And in that light, everything is just perfect. That is the moment, that moment of uncompromised wholeness and perfection that the great mystics of the Jewish tradition chose as the only apt metaphor for a world redeemed and a taste of that world on Shabbat. So welcome to the wedding. It's on page 21. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Everything is finished. Everything is in order. Everyone is dressed. Everyone is exactly where they need to be. The bride enters, and for one solitary moment, the world is without compromise, whole and perfect and at peace.
Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor velakor velibor echad Yishmianu Elam yuchar Adonai echad U'shemo echad L'shem ultiferet V'litila Chadod חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת קבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת קבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלך כי מקור החברכה מראש מקדם מסוכה בסוף מעשה ומחשבת מילה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת קבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה היתוררי כי באורך אורי אורי נקרא חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת קבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי היניש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת קבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת קבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה חדודי לקראת קלה בני שבת
This last week, the community suffered numerous losses of friends, among them a dear friend of many of us, Diana Michelson, who came to shul frequently, always, and always sat around there, right around there. We want to welcome her family, her daughters, Joyce and Natalie, and their families to the community. And we pray, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem B'toshar V'lei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May God, who has comforted and cared for us, and all the generations of our journeys, bring you strength and peace as you remember your mother's life and hold her soul close. Please be seated. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת. לי לה 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 לי 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 לה 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 לי 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 לה 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 להגיד בבוקר חסדך אמונתך בלילות עלי עשור ועלי עלי היגיון וחינוך. יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה לה, יאי לה לה לה, יאי לה לה thoughtless cannot comprehend you. The foolish cannot know the one. The wicked may flourish and spring up like grass, but they wilt in the light of the sun. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la. עוד ינובון בשיבה, שנים ורעננים יהיו. אגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולתה בו. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la yai la 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 la.
Rise together. The Mariv prayers begin on page 28 in your prayer book.
Yai la la, yai la la la, yai la 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 la, yai 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 la la la. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Amen. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Amen. Yai lai la 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 yai lai.
Please be seated.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין הלילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין הלילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים, אל חי וקיים, תמיד תמיד ימלוך עלינו, אל המעבד. ברוך אתה אדוני הרב חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה כי ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה כי ויורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ויאהבתך ויאהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אוהב עמו ישראל
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, bechol lavavcha, ubechol nafshecha, ubechol meidecha, ve'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך Adonai Elohechem, Amen. Yada dai 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 dai. Yada dai 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 yada dai dai dai. Yada dai 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 yada dai dai dai. Yada dai 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 dai. Chamocha bailim Adonai מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא עושה פלא ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 מלכותך רהוב ענף בוקע ים לפני משה מלכותך רהוב ענף לפני הים לפני משה ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 זה לי אנו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם לעולם ועד ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ידה די 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 ונאמר כי פנה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
This week, we met with the Assistant Chief of Police in charge of counterterrorism to talk about defending the synagogue. We walked the perimeter of the building with a fellow from the Department of Homeland Security. Our security consultant, who was an officer in the Israeli intelligence service, came the next day and walked this perimeter with us again, and then met with the guards at the gates. There are more guards at the gates than there were yesterday. And the guards at the gate are wearing arms, which they didn't yesterday. And the arms that they wear are really big arms. They're wearing very visible weapons. And the procedures for entering the synagogue have been significantly tightened. You show a badge, you produce a piece of ID, you have to produce your bag, we go through your bag. There are cameras all through the building. You'll notice these intercom speakers have been added to the building just in case we need to call an alert. There's something profoundly important about that. Our children can come here and learn and grow and be safe. There's something profoundly sad about this. It does something to us. It changes us. It changes the way that we look at each other. It changes the way that we feel in any particular space. It changes the way that we think about the United States of America and what it means to live in a pluralistic society. It changes us. There's something profoundly sad about this. The politics we'll leave for another day, not a Shabbos day. But there's something profoundly to be mourned in the necessity of all of this to make us feel like we can be safe in a place of prayer, in a place of God. So let us pray that this week we might find another note of peace, perhaps inside the gates, behind the guards, inside the cameras, underneath the alarms and the burglar devices. We might find a little bit of peace, a little bit of wholeness, and a little bit of the security that we knew just yesterday. On page 33, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'amidenu malkeinu l'chayim. Let us go to sleep tonight in peace and wake up tomorrow to life.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu lechayim Ufrosaneinu Sukkot shelomecha V'takneinu be'etza tova milvanecha Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu lechayim V'hoshienu למען שמך והגן בדנו והסר מעלינו אויב דבר וחרב ורע ויגון השכיבנו Hashkivenu Ufros aleinu sukkot shelomecha Adonai Hapore sukkot shalom aleinu Ve'al kol amo Yisrael Ve'al Yerushalayim. Let's rise together and join together. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashavat לעשות את השבת לדורותם בגבולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בגבולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בגבולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בגבולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בגבולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בגבולם.
ויתקדש שמי רבו ילמד יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה וימרו אמן יש מירב מבורך ויעלם ולעולם יעלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרום העם ויתנשא ויתהלל שמי דקודשה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירון בעולמה וימרו
Take a few moments for quiet personal prayer. You'll find the words of the Amidah beginning on page 35. And as you go through the Amidah, remember that tonight is Hanukkah and it's also Rosh Chodesh. So add those sections as well.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו Amen. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו Shadow במרומה. הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Please be seated. You're welcome to close your Siddurim. This weekend, we have devoted to the commemoration of Rabbi Schulweiss's first yahrzeit, to remember him and to gather in his teaching. And our very special guest this weekend is Chancellor Arnold Eisen of the Jewish Theological Seminary. I will tell you that there are actually two people who wear the same name and wear the same face. And it is appropriate that we've invited both of them here to remember Rabbi Schulweiss. Professor Dr. Arnold Eisen, one of the truly serious thinkers about American Judaism, scholar of the sociology of American Jewish life, its philosophy, its inner ideology, chosen as the seventh chancellor, the seventh chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, which means that he is the chief academic officer of the conservative movement and one of the true leaders of world Jewry, and one of the really profound thinkers about who we are in the world. And then there's a gentleman named Arnie Eisen, who's an old friend of so many of us, who's been to our community many times to share prayer and learning and to be with us, because he feels with his heart the condition of the Jewish people. He feels with his heart the struggle of the community. He feels with his heart the idealism which beats within us. And his writing, his scholarship, and his activism in the community comes from that deep place of passion. He's really the ideal person to help us remember Rabbi Schulweiss. It's a privilege to have both the Chancellor and the old friend here in the synagogue. Please welcome Chancellor Arnold Eisen. You got to speak right into that mic, so lift it.
You can hear me, right? I think so. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. It's a real honor to be here as the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary to help pay honor to the memory of one of the great rabbis of this generation, certainly one of the great conservative rabbis of this generation. And I have to tell you, it's a really deep personal pleasure for me to be here because I was one of those people that Rabbi Schulweiss befriended. I was a young scholar. I think I had just written my first book, and he showed me far more respect and affection than I had earned. And immediately we launched into a discussion of Heschel and Kaplan and Soloveitchik and Buber and Rosenzweig. I think as I'm now in my 60s and I have conversations with younger people, guessing what he felt, there's a deep satisfaction in finding that there are younger people who actually care about some of the same things you do. That the way is not going to stop with you, that there are books that you read and this person reads them. And there are worries that keep you up at night, and lo and behold, there's a person 30 or 40 years younger than you are, and they also stay up at night worried about the same things. And there are concerns in your community that this person is concerned about. This person wants to build your future. And if I have to say, I think what attracted me to him, and what I suspect partly attracted him to me, was that I wasn't just a scholar. I wanted to put these ideas into play. They had to mean something for the lives of real Jews. I wasn't studying Judaism because I decided one day that this would be a nice thing to study, like French literature of the 18th century. I was trying to save the community that I cared the most about. And that's certainly what he was trying to do. And so we bonded. And I read and reread a lot of Harold's books in preparation for this event, and I'm proud to say that a lot of them are personally inscribed. And, it meant something to me when I received them, and it means even more now when I can't get them to inscribe any more for me. Can't get them to write any more books, can't get them to inscribe any more books. But these ideas are going to live, and they're going to live through you and me because we're going to make them live in our lives. And that's what I'm going to try to do tonight. And there's a bond that survives death, just as Harold Schulweis said it did. And this is one of those bonds that's going to survive his death, this bond of ours, committing to put these ideas of Torah into the world through our lives. So Rabbi Feinstein asked me to speak about something like Harold Schulweis in history. And I decided to take that phrase in two directions. Number one, to look at Rabbi Harold Schulweis as a person of his times and what were the influences that shaped him. How do the forces in play work upon him? And the second thing, of course, is how he then turned around and impacted the history of which he was a part, and how we're all different, and how I'm different, and you're different because of him, and because of what he said, and because of what he wrote and what he thought. So I want to start with the last paragraph of the book of his that was the first book of his that I read, Evil and the Morality of God. And I want to note that the last paragraph begins with the name Elie Wiesel, and that immediately tells you, certainly told me, that these concerns for theology, his famous predicate theology, which in the books or the mind of somebody else might have been an abstract theological concern, were the opposite of that for Harold Schulweis. It's strange for me to be talking about Harold Schulweis in the presence of Malka and the family and many of you who knew him, but what I got from that book and verified in conversation was that he wasn't fooling around with theology like people move around pieces on a chessboard. He was answering real life questions. First of all, they were his questions. And he was a great rabbi because he listened to other people and knew that they weren't just his questions, they were our questions. So in this paragraph, the last paragraph of the book, he says, you got to recognize, I'm paraphrasing here, but now that theological sameness is no complement to authentic religious tradition. We need religious audacity of tradition. We need new ways to understand divinity. The proposal for predicate theology and predicate liturgy, despite the analytic character of its presentation, is offered in response to Wiesel's passionate challenge. I happen to love that sentence. That's a man after my own heart, or rather, I'm a man after his own heart. Here again. Despite the analytic character of his presentation, is offered in response to Elie Wiesel's passionate challenge. Elie Wiesel's passionate challenge is, after the Holocaust, you can't mean the same thing by God that you meant before. It could be that it's not the first challenge like this. There's the book of Job, after all. There have been terrible events that happened to Jews individually and collectively before this, but it's ours. It's the one that hangs over our generation. And then he says, this is not meant for everyone. It is for those who are embarrassed by the theological rationalizations which leave God morally defenseless. Don't you love that? You can't leave God morally defenseless. God needs us to defend God. God can't be left morally defenseless or indifferent to suffering. There's some pretty horrible theologies out there that have been written in response to the Holocaust, and one of them is to say that God's okay with this kind of suffering, or that God even endorses it, or allows it, or God forbid causes it. And Harold Schulweis says here at the end paragraph of that very first book, this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We can't put up with this. And so this analytic theology, this mind of his, which we all know was formidable, was brought to bear to solve a profound human problem of our generation and to defend God against people who say stupid and obscene things about God, like, for instance, the Satmar Rebbe, who said that God sent the Holocaust to punish Jews for Zionism and Reform Judaism. You got to defend God against Jews like this. Predicate theology and theodicy are for those who cannot go home again using old routes, but who choose not to remain homeless. You can't go home again, but you choose not to, or better yet, you refuse to remain homeless, and so you need a different kind of theology, which is going to help you navigate that path. Now, I happen to love this move. I could tell you that there were analytic philosophical sources of this move to say that God is not a subject, God is a verb, a predicate, and God is not a being, but God is the attributes of godliness that we put into the world. You all know about this. I could trace it to Mordechai Kaplan and show you how Kaplan, this is one possible interpretation of Kaplan. There are other possible interpretations of Kaplan, but this is certainly one of them. But the point for me is not so much the technical details of the theology, because I would say, like Heschel, who on the very first page of his great book, God in Search of Man, makes a distinction between theology and depth theology, Harold Schulweis makes a distinction between theology, which tries to figure things out in an analytic, rational way and put them in place and make them coherent one with another, and what Heschel called depth theology, which answers the questions that human beings have from the depths. You don't do theology because you have a few nice ideas, you decided to write a dissertation on a particular subject. You do depth theology because you can't live without these answers. You require them. And that's the kind of theology that Harold Schulweis gave us. Now, I want to put it in the context of another book. I confess I never talked to him about this, but I am positive that he knew this. And I actually think that this last paragraph, whether he intended it or not, is a direct response to another last paragraph. I also love the symmetry that his last paragraph was from 1983 and the other last paragraph was from 1938. So you reverse the 8 and the 3. That last paragraph was in Gershom Sholom's great book, Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism. A seminal series of lectures he gave at Hebrew Union College in New York, which became the foundation of the modern study of Jewish mysticism. And you all have read about this last paragraph. You may have heard it directly. I'm going to paraphrase it. Once upon a time, the Baal Shem Tov needed to accomplish a miracle in the world. He went into the forest, he lit a fire, he said a prayer, and what he had to do was accomplished. And the next generation doesn't know the fire anymore, but it knows to go into the woods, and it says the prayer, and the thing's accomplished. And then 2 generations later, they don't know the fire, they don't know the wood, but they still have the prayer. And then 3 generations later, which is us, we don't know the place in the woods, we don't know how to light the fire, we don't know how to say the prayer, and all we can do is tell the story of the people who used to do that. I hate that paragraph. Because what it makes it sound like is that once upon a time, there were these great pious people, and they knew how to do it. And you want to find the real Jews? Go back 200 years. They were the real Jews. We can't do it. All we can do is tell the story. I hate that approach to Judaism, and I believe that Harold Schulweis hated it as well. We are no less Jewish than our ancestors. Our problems are no less serious. God requires us no less than God required them, and they didn't have so many answers either. So we're not here to venerate tradition. We're not here to put it in a museum. We're here to make tradition live. So how do you do that, right? And his answers, I think, are the answers that are suggested by a whole series of modern Jewish thinkers. I could point to the sources in Kaplan or in Heschel or in Rosenzweig or in Buber. I'm not going to give you my language, but you'll hear from, you'll recognize the language. The first thing you do is you build face-to-face communities. We cannot accomplish any of this without human beings with real personal relationships with one another who can look each other in the eye, celebrate with each other at simchas, mourn with each other at sadnesses, be there when you need them, stand by me, stand by us, stand for something, be with us. And you can't have congregations of 1,000 people to serve these purposes, so you need chavurot. And long before it was popular, Harold Schulweis was writing about chavurot. Because that is the first requirement. I think you can do absolutely nothing without communities. Community is the prerequisite for everything else, and so you need chavurot. And the second thing you need are different kinds of meanings. You have to give people meaning. As we said a few moments ago, you have to raise them up. have to get them deep into themselves. You have to give them a sense that they're part of something much larger than themselves, part of a people larger than themselves, and part of a cause, part of a reality larger than themselves, whether it's going to be predicate theology or some other kind of theology. They require a meaning with a capital M to get you through this life, because life is hard. And the world is a mess. So there has to be community and there has to be meaning. We have these institutions called synagogues. Rabbis are very precious, but there are not enough rabbis to go around, and so you need to have para-rabbis. It's perfectly sensible. You know, Mordechai Kaplan, I don't know if Harold Schulweis had this in his head the way that I have this in my head, but I consult with Kaplan and Heschel and a couple other people almost every day when I try to figure out what JTS should do. These people live for me. One of the greatest contributions Mordechai Kaplan gave to the world was the table of contents in his great book, Judaism as a Civilization. Before the rest of it, the table of contents. Because he's a Jewish thinker, the only one to my knowledge, who says, we have a problem. Here's what the problem is. These were the previous attempts to solve the problem. This is why they failed. Now we're going to try this. It's going to have the following 5 ingredients. And I see Harold Schulweis saying, we have a problem. We can't go back to the previous solutions. They didn't work. This is the nature of the problem. This is what I'm going to try. And you all had the privilege of trying it together with him. And he learned from you how to do it better. So this, to me, is a great gift of method. This is a contribution to modern Jewish thought, which I see in Mordechai Kaplan, I see in Harold Schulweis. It's not explicit in Heschel. You can pick it up in various pieces in Heschel. You can see that he also understood there was a problem, and he's trying to solve it. Jewish theology in our times is not an abstract proposition. It has to deal with the fact that science has rendered God irrelevant to the explanation of everyday life, and historical consciousness has rendered God irrelevant to the explanation of events in our world. As I like to put it, if you dare to mention God in a classroom at Stanford University, you will be fired. God cannot be used to explain anything scientific or historical. In a religious studies classroom where I taught for 20 years at Stanford, we were allowed to mention God, but that's because that was a matter of history or anthropology. It wasn't real. The real stuff is what you get tenure for. Use God in a scientific paper, you don't get tenure. Use God in a historical paper, you don't get the paper published. So we have this problem, right? And then, as if that weren't bad enough, the Holocaust comes to us. And it's sitting there like an obstacle, and you have to get by it because you got to live. And I see Harold Schulweis facing this problem, looking around at the resources, considering the fact, okay, we have Israel, we have each other, we've got these traditions, we've got these fantastic rituals, what are we going to do? He knew that theology was not going to get us through this. Theology, as traditionally practiced, was not going to get us past the Holocaust. So we had to find another way of doing it. Now, he did a couple other moves, which I want to mention, which are also very much of his time and ahead of his time. And I can trace their roots in Jewish thinkers, but rather than do that, let me just mention them briefly. There was a sense after the Holocaust, and Emil Fackenheim captures this really well in his writings, especially his books, God's Presence in History from 1970 and To Mend the World, which is from the 80s, the mid-80s. There was a danger that Jews were going to lose faith in humanity and lose faith in the world. Not just lose faith in God, lose faith in humanity and lose faith in the world, because so many people stood around and did nothing while it happened. How can you trust them? And a lot of people did this in the name of Christianity. And so you could lose faith in Christianity. And Harold Schulweis made this move of recognizing righteous Gentiles, which I think is not just there to do hakarat hatov, the recognition of goodness that people do, which is a very important thing. I think it's partly designed to end this tendency in the Jewish world to circle the wagons and close in upon ourselves, and you can't trust anybody outside the community. I'm not sure you can trust people inside the community. Get rid of that. Open up. Have courage. Face the world engage the world. Don't be afraid of the world. Say thank you to others for the good they've done, but it also means that you can trust humanity again. You don't have to, and they did these good things because they were Christian, not despite the fact they were Christian. They did these things because they were Christian, because their faith motivated them to risk their lives for Jews. How many of us would risk our lives for anybody? And there was this profound universalist thrust, which again goes counter to other voices in modern Jewish thought. You know that the great Orthodox Rabbi Soloveitchik, who was a wonderful man, taught us all a lot, taught Harold Schulweis a lot, but he made a principled statement that Jews should not engage in interfaith dialogue. It was in the Jewish Week this week in New York, and probably in the LA Jewish paper, that several Orthodox rabbis have finally come out with a declaration that he was wrong. We are now going to engage as Orthodox rabbis in interfaith dialogue. Well, of course you have to engage in interfaith dialogue, because you're not the only creatures that God loves, and you can't repair the world by yourself. So to me, it's self-evident. To Harold Schulweis, it's self-evident, but he was writing for a Jewish community which, partly because it was traumatized by the Holocaust and it has sensed the isolation of Israel, was not looking outwards. And so he went with Heschel, with Franz Rosenzweig, with Martin Buber, along a path that said, we are going to talk to fellow creatures of God, because this love of God for humanity extends way beyond us. Before you're a Jew, you're a human being. The Bible doesn't start with Abraham, of course. It starts with Adam and Eve. To make the point, the rabbi said, they were all from the same blood. This is about all of us. It's not just about the Jews. So he went one step further than that even. And I have to confess that I argued with him about this. I thought he was wrong. He not only said we need cooperation and partnership and dialogue with non-Jews, we need outreach. We need invitation. We got to go out there and attract non-Jews to our doors. And I said, but if you do that, then you can't complain when a missionary knocks on your door, as they did at my house in Philadelphia, and try to persuade you to become Christian. And we found that obnoxious. But he said, there are lots he had the experience of being a rabbi, which I didn't. He converted many people. He understood there were people who were hungry for something, and Judaism had it, and if they were hungry for it, you should welcome them, invite them, convert them. It's a nice thing to be able to say that I was wrong and he was right. I was wrong, he was right. JTS is in this business. We're trying to increase the number of people we convert. We're trying to do outreach. We're trying to welcome people. We're trying to, if you're happy in your faith, God bless you. You don't need to be Jewish to have God or righteousness or anything like that. But if you want to become a Jew, if you're interested in exploring this, we're happy to help you explore it. And the Jewish community has to abandon this age-old idea that kind of we're too good to go out there and have converts. There's a certain pride, okay, they wouldn't let us convert people for many centuries. Oh, we don't want you anyway. And that became the habit of the Jews, and it was destructive. And Harold Schulweis challenged it and went against it and changed it. I want to say that you learn about theology when you live things. You don't learn about the theology from the books. You may have read the books. I read a lot of theology books before I grew up. But if I'm standing here before you as a Jew, a believing Jew, a passionate Jew, a practicing Jew, of a certain sort, it's not because of the books I read. It's because of experiences I've had that brought the books, and especially the Torah itself, to life. And when I had lived that way for a while and started teaching that way, you heard Rabbi Feinstein teach this way a moment ago when he introduced L'cha Dodi in terms of an upcoming wedding. Right? So I was finishing that sentence. So when you've experienced that way, you realize this is the way you've got to teach, because the learning comes from life. So the books become an appendage, or not a lens, a way into the life. It helps you frame the experience, and that's when the books live for you, and that's when the ideas matter. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of Schulweis through a little bit of Eisen here. But I'm doing this not so you can know my biography, but so you can think about your own as I'm speaking. My mother-in-law recently passed away, and in her drawer we found film of my wedding that we did not know existed. From 1982, we had never heard of it, let alone seen it. So all of a sudden I'm watching my wedding. And I realized that it was one of the happiest days of my life until that point, and it was made so by a Jewish community, a chavura, called Minyan Ma'at in New York, of which I was a member, which made that wedding and filled it with joy and profundity. Taught me all sorts of things about love. Came to life in that experience. What I learned at my wedding was as nothing compared to what I learned watching my daughter come into the world. As I like to say, I reread my high school reproductive biology textbook, and for the men of my generation, I took a Lamaze course. I'm not sure if men still take Lamaze courses. I was going to help my wife breathe, right? And she's busy laboring, as they call it, and I'm watching the most profound miracle ever take place. And as I walk around the room singing, as the Supremes did, "Baby, Baby, I Hear a Symphony," with my new baby in my arms, I cannot stop saying, "Thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God," for minutes on end. I knew what blessing was all about. I cannot explain this theological claim that I'm about to make, but no one will convince me to my dying day that it is not true. My wife and I did not create that child by ourselves. God is a creator. And part of my loyalty to conservative Judaism is that that girl grew up to become a bat mitzvah. And so she's standing on the bima with the Torah in her hand, having dove and shacharit. Now she's singing the Shema. She's leading the procession around the aisle, and I'm saying to myself, my God, where would this bat mitzvah have happened? Not in Reform, not in Orthodoxy. So it's not just because I was a Jew that I was able to experience the joy of that moment. It's because of the kind of Jew I was that had made this move about women that was incarnate at that moment of bat mitzvah. My son's bar mitzvah was a moment of equal joy, but it didn't have the novelty of having a bat mitzvah, right? That was a move that we had made conservative Judaism courageously, not just in the name of feminism or equality or justice, but working through the sources and saying, this is in fact what the Torah wanted. As my predecessor as Chancellor Gershon Cohen, a great historian, said, our task and privilege is not to live as Jews on the banks of the Vistula in the 18th century. Remember, we're in New York. Our task and privilege as a Jew is to live on the banks of the Hudson in the 20th century. And as such, we're here to make Torah live. Remember, that's why I don't like that last paragraph in Gershom Sholem. I'm not going to look back to the Hasidim and say, oh, they got it right. I wish I could be like them. I don't wish I could be like them at all. The shtetl was a nasty place. The ghetto was terrible. It cramped the spirit. I'm thrilled to be living in the greatest diaspora Jews ever lived in. Let's appreciate America and what it offers us. And we stand alongside the state of Israel at this time. And let's have a Judaism that lives in this time. And that's what I was experiencing then. And then when you lose your parents, I don't know how people do it without Shiva. And I was grateful to be a Jew, not just because of my community, but because of the wisdom of this tradition, the wisdom of the Kaddish, and because I was surrounded by people who didn't say things to me that I knew I couldn't believe, but said all sorts of things that raised me up and gave me hope and put me back into the world. They were Jews, and they were the kind of Jews that I treasure. All of that taught me a great deal about Judaism. I could go on like this. What ritual is there more profound than saying the blessing over your children on Friday night? You know how many parents can't bless their kids? You know how many kids are desperate for the blessing of their parents? We know that because we have it in the Torah itself. The Torah itself gives us Esau in tears because Isaac has stolen his blessing. Father, you don't have a blessing for me too? A lot of people don't think that God has a blessing for them. They don't think their own parents have a blessing for them. And here we have this joy of blessing our kids. My father, every time he saw me bless my kids, would burst into tears, and I confess that at my own daughter's wedding this past June, I blessed my son-in-law for the first time, and I burst into tears. This is powerful stuff. And that's how Judaism works. That's how Judaism works. And Harold Schulweis knew this, and he taught this. So even though I am not a predicate theology guy, I'm much more of a Heschel guy when it comes to theology, I'm a Schulweis guy. Because, for instance, when Harold Schulweis explained why we need both the concept of God as Elohim and the concept of God as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, I'm paraphrasing from one of his books now, he says, because you need to have Rambam's notion that Olam can mean Hagon Noheg. When faced with suffering, when faced with death, when faced with things you can't understand, you have to know the world takes its natural course. That's the God, Elohim God, the God of nature, the God of universal morality, the God of cosmos, being itself. But that God is not enough. You got to have the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh God, as he said, the source of the ideals that help transform the givenness of nature into ideal ends. Our job is not to surrender, as we heard Rabbi Feinstein say earlier. Our job is not to surrender or just put up with this. Our job is to, quote, transform the givenness of nature into ideal ends. And that's the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh God, the God of the future, the God of being moving forward. I'm a Schulweis guy because he wrote in his book, Finding Each Other in Judaism, and many other places, quote, the essential task for us as human beings is living our lives in a way that makes manifest the attributes of godliness. This was best expressed by him, I think, as it was by Heschel, either in poetry or in prose poems. Because the prose poems reach the heart. There's a great line in Heschel, which I know that Harold Schulweis knew. The problem is not to believe, the problem is to tell it to our minds. The problem is not to have faith, the problem is to tell it to our minds. Now, we're going to tell it to our minds differently. But one of the ways that Heschel got us to tell it to our minds, and one of the ways that Schulweis got to tell it to our minds, is poetry, because poetry is the closest words get to music. Why do we have the music for Kabbalat Shabbat? Why don't we just stand and recite words? Because we all know there's something in music. When the Chazan sings the Baruch Hu, I vibrate in a way they wouldn't if the words were just said and not sang. So here's a little bit of Schulweis poetry. My God in whom I trust, not an enemy. My God revealed through family and friends, prayers added to my own, transfusing will. Or listen to this profound thought in the chapter on death, dying, and immortality. The last word has not been spoken. The last sentence has not been written. The final verdict is not in. It's never too late to change my mind, my direction, to say no to the past and yes to the future. And that is, I think, what makes Harold Schulweis very much a man of his time, for his time, and ahead of his time, not letting science block him, not letting the Holocaust block him, taking the best of Jewish thought, the best of non-Jewish thought, the best the world has to offer, and pushing us to use it to make the world better. Now, I could stop there, but I'm not going to, because your rabbi told me to take as much time as I need. True? So I'm going to be chutzpahdik here and say I'm now going to try to channel Harold Schulweis, but it's going to be Eisen, I confess. So for those of you who think this is not Schulweis, okay, it's Eisen. I actually think there's a lot of Schulweis in it. So here it goes. Try to do this quickly. I appear in this recent commentary magazine symposium that came out last month where they asked 67 Jews a very stupid question. The stupid question is, what is the Jewish world going to be like 50 years from now? Like we know. Like we can say with any kind of certitude. And my first paragraph was how stupid the question is. Do you know what's going to happen with global warming? I don't. Do you know if China's going to be the dominant power in the world 50 years from now? I don't. Either of those things is going to affect the world in profound ways and certainly affect Jewish life in profound ways. So what does everybody do? Of course they do it. If you want to answer the question, you take current trends and you extrapolate from them and assume that nothing's going to change 50 years from now. It's just going to be the same, only more so. Which is why this is one of the most depressing, gloomy symposia you're ever going to read in your entire life. This is not saying yes to the future. This is saying no to the future. Imagine the future is going to be just like the worst of what we've got. Thank you very much, Commentary Magazine. And the two trends, of course, they pick up on, neither of which I like very much. Number one, Jewish life is going to exist and thrive and be wonderful in the state of Israel, which of course is going to live in peace with its neighbors. Ken Yehi Ratzon. And American Jewry is going to continue to be beset by anti-Semitism and assimilation and get smaller and smaller, except for the Orthodox. So the only future in America is for the Orthodox, and of course the real future is in Israel. That's a bet that I am living my life against. All of us are if we're serious about what we're doing here. Israel should live. I want Israel to thrive. Of course I want Israel to thrive. And I want Orthodoxy to thrive. But if I thought that those were the only games in town, I'm in the wrong place entirely at the Jewish Theological Seminary, and Harold Schulweis was in the wrong place. I think that meaning and community are going to take us very far. I think that if we do a better job of enhancing meaning and giving it to people in experiences of real community, we're going to make it. And here again, what are the things that work? Camps work because it's 24/7 community. Helps that your role models are cool young people who are modeling this Jewish life for you. That helps a lot. But you're getting community. This is the definition of community. We all wish we were at camp. Come on, admit it. We all wish we could live at camp, surrounded by our best friends. Having Judaism be the dominant framework, and baseball enters a Jewish world, and anything else, drama comes into a Jewish world. And it's all a Jewish world because it's a human world. It's a wonderful world. And youth groups, when they work, come on. I remember, I'm here today because of USY. There was that moment in Atlantic City when I'm 16 years old and I'm very, very shy and I'm worried that anybody's going to like me, and somebody pulls me into a dance that seems to go on all night on a Kabbalat Shabbat, and it's wonderful, and I'm part of that circle. What could be better than this? It's community. And when day schools work, they work because they create community, and when synagogues work, they work because they create community, and we could go on. And then you fill these communities with meaning, life-giving meaning. Call it, what do you want, God or ethics or whatever meaning with a capital M you got. And this works. And that's why, I'm now going to ride another favorite hobby horse of mine. That's why these silly surveys do not capture what's essential about us. Do you believe in God? Yes or no? Well, thank you very much. Or how many times a month do you go to synagogue? The survey cannot capture what goes on inside when we have these experiences. The survey cannot capture that my father broke down in tears when he saw me bless my children, or why he broke down in tears, or why I broke down in tears when I blessed my son-in-law. The surveys cannot capture that. They cannot capture why I tremble when I hear the Baruch Hu song. Let alone tomorrow's Kedusha, when we say the words, right, from your place, God, appear to us. We're waiting for you. This notion of we're waiting for you, God, come on, which I regard not as a summons to God only, but as a summons to me with all my heart. They can't capture this. There are fantastic things going on among the Jews in this country right now, which the surveys are missing. And so when the surveys tell you that we're shrinking, yeah, conservative Jewish numbers are shrinking, but there is so much vitality, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow afternoon, in this movement right now, that I refuse to be discouraged, and I don't think you should be either, because discouragement is not a good way to proceed into the future. And when I go to Jewish communities, whether here or in Europe or Latin America or in Israel, I find Jewish hearts beating to the common theme of Am Yisrael Chai. Come on, what's the meaning of Hanukkah? The meaning of Hanukkah, at the most profound level for us, the meaning as we experience it, is not just religious freedom, which is oh so relevant this week this notion of religious freedom, we should not be persecuting people who believe things differently than we do, or denying them access to our country. But I think the meaning of Hanukkah, the passion behind Hanukkah, when we light those candles, when we put light into darkness, is that we're still here to do it 2,000 years after that tyrant tried to exterminate us, just like this tyrant 70 years ago tried to exterminate us. Am Yisrael Chai. We're here alive. And when I see high-tech buildings rising in Tel Aviv, that's not just Silicon Valley. That's the future. That's life. Rising from the ashes of the Holocaust, Am Yisrael Chai. So that's another thing the surveys can't capture. I challenge you to find a Pew report that can get into this understanding of how Jews respond to Am Yisrael Chai. That's what our future is all about. I don't know. I don't think that for all the changes that are happening in our world and all the networks, the notion of community is going to go out of fashion. All the evidence is, I just read some on the plane yesterday, that millennials love networks, but they also want face-to-face community. The need for meaning is not going to change. It's going to grow because of all the nonsense that people are throwing at you. I don't have my iPhone with me because it's Shabbos, but just open it up and somebody's trying to sell you something. We have to be able to distinguish the real stuff from the fake stuff. There's a profound need for meaning. And Jews are not going to not be thrilled and challenged and engaged by the commandments which have always been central to our tradition and remain so, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So 2,000 years ago, as Abraham Joshua tells us in his book Torah Min HaShamayim, one of the really precious paragraphs for me in that book, there was a rabbi named Rabbi Akiba who said the meaning of loving the Lord with all your heart and all your soul, your might, is being willing to die for God. And Rabbi Ishmael, who like Rabbi Akiba died for God when the Romans executed both of them, Rabbi Ishmael said the only meaning that he could find in the commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might is to love your neighbor as yourself. This is not some modern conservative Jewish post-scientific, post-Holocaust, predicate theology invention. This is Rabbi Ishmael who said this 2,000 years ago. To me, I'm going to finish now with the power of that word all. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. So if what I was supposed to do was put my faith over here and my mind over here, then by definition I cannot obey this commandment, because then I'm split. I'm really schizophrenic. I can't love my God with all my heart, which includes my mind. And if I have to do with all my soul, as the Hasidim said, with both your good and evil urges, take all you are and give it, all your deepest selves, and take all your might, all your b'chol meodecha, all your veriness, all that makes you you, and channel that into this love. I don't think there's any greater wish that we have than this wish for the allness. And you and I know, I think we know because we're mature enough to know this, that none of us has what it takes to fulfill this commandment by ourselves. So it doesn't just take all the heart and all the soul and all the might of one person. It takes all the heart and all the soul and all the might of all the human beings, creatures of God, filled with love that we can find on this earth. Certainly that we can find in this room, in this community. It takes old and young. It takes gay and straight. It takes all sorts of people. Believers in this and believers in that. It takes Jews and Christians and Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs and everybody. We're not going to do this without all of that allness. And then the question is, how can this allness possibly have a chance? Because we're all so divided. And, and it really makes you sick to see these people, the terrorists. It's bad enough they do this stuff, but to do it in the name of God, it's disgusting. It almost makes you want to join the atheists. It really does. Right? And that's what we can't allow to happen. We can't allow that because, as Harold Shulway said, I quoted you that line at the very beginning, we've got to defend God against these people. Right? They're doing Chilul Hashem, we have to do Kiddush Hashem. They're profaning God's name, we have to sanctify God's name by doing good things in God's name. So I'll leave you with the thought that the hope that we can manage the allness comes from the fact that God is Echad. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but of all the attributes the Torah could have ascribed to God in the Shema, which we recite more than anything else about God, this really, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Echad. Of all the things they could have said Kadosh. They could have said, Shema Yisrael Eloheinu Adonai Tzaddik. They could have said God is truth. They could have said God is love. But they said God is one. And I'm convinced, for whatever it's worth, not believing that I have the ultimate truth of this, I'm telling you the meaning that works for me right now. That's what I think theology is, the meaning that works for me right now. Because my chance at allness comes from the fact that I'm connected to this God who is one. The oneness of God is the key to the potential for the allness of us. The hope that I can actually love God in private as well as in public, that I can love God at moments of great action and confidence and security when I rise up, and I can also love God when I'm bowed down at the lowest moments I have. All this is dependent on that oneness which we somehow get to be part of. I just want to leave you with the thought that, if I'm right, is the kind of theology that Harold Shulway left for us. That's the kind of theology that's going to sustain you and me and get us through life and able to find profundity and joy there and pass these on. And that's the kind of theology that's going to help us right now when the world needs us as never before, because never before has the very survival of God's world been in jeopardy. I'm talking to you on the day of the Paris climate talks ended. Never before have human beings come together knowing they have the responsibility to save God's world from the destruction which we're causing it. Never before. It's going to take everything we've got and more, and I really believe that the chance we're going to have at love is connected to the allness we're going to summon, which is connected to the oneness of God. With that, Shabbat Shalom.
Let's do Kiddush. John, you feeling a little Kiddush? Let's do Kiddush. Everyone rise together, please. Let's do Kiddush and Elaine. Kiddush, right here. Got some wine for you.
Okay, good. Page 49.
Good stuff. It's Manischewitz.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav veratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Sing Elaine.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסר ארץ ומשך. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם וערב, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Our community gathers this weekend to remember our dear teacher, Rabbi Schulweiss. I'll ask you please to remain standing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechal beit Yisrael, ba'galau v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'me'ol maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Huyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Please be seated. A very special thank you to Chancellor Eisen for joining us for this weekend, for your words this evening and your tribute and your words of teaching. Tomorrow morning, everyone is invited back, or you can just stay here and sleep. Right here in this room at 9 o'clock in the morning, Chancellor Eisen and I will engage in Torah study. As is our tradition, tomorrow morning we'll study the beginning of the story of the book of Joseph, the story of Joseph. At 9:30 or so in the main sanctuary, we'll begin our prayers for the Shabbos morning. It's Shabbat, it's Hanukkah, and it's Rosh Chodesh. Something for everybody. It's also Frank Sinatra's 100th birthday. So, strangers in the shul. So please join us for prayers. Chancellor Eisen will speak to us at the end of the service. Then we'll have Kiddush lunch together, and following Kiddush lunch is Shabbat Shiur, and the conversation we'll share is on the question of, is there a future for conservative Judaism? Everyone is invited. He says yes. We'll see what I say tomorrow. See how I feel in the morning. But please return tomorrow and join us for our conversation. And those of you who are members of the Board of Directors, Board of Trustees, and the Day School Board will be together on Sunday morning as well. A very special thank you this evening. A very special thank you to Cantors Fox and Barron for leading our prayers, to music director Chris Harden, for our musicians tonight, Hope, right? Welcome, so good to have you with us. To Craig and to Cassandra, thank you so much for sharing. And to the wonderful VBS choir, thank you also very much for sharing your voices and your talents with us. Following the service in the hallway, you will find some goodies. So please have a little bit of something before you leave. It's a very, very bitterly cold night outside. This is as cold as it gets in Southern California. It has dropped down to a frigid 67 degrees. So bundle up, and have something warm before you leave. Just another announcement or two. So tomorrow we have a wonderful day of learning and prayer and gathering together as a community. There will be no College of Jewish Studies this week because of the beginning of the winter break. The College of Jewish Studies will commence on January the 6th, and our guest will be our friend Imam Jihad Turk, who is a professor of theology at Claremont and the head of the Los Angeles Islamic Center, a wonderful teacher of Islam, who will talk to us, as is in our part of our series, on the God that I know. The God that I know. So please come in January and join us for that. It's also, I think, an important statement of our community's feelings about our Muslim neighbors who have come to share this country with us and share this neighborhood, to learn together and to listen to each other's faith. And that'll be on January the 6th. This weekend, we remember Rabbi Schulweis. He used to say one interesting thing. Malka and I spoke earlier, and one of the things that was very characteristic about the rabbis, he very rarely talked about death. It just wasn't one of the things he talked about. There was too much in life, too much to do, too much in the world. But there was one story that he did tell frequently. And he told the story that when his grandmother died, his grandfather sat Shiva for exactly one day. And the next day there was a holiday. It was Sukkot. And his grandfather got up from Shiva. And he asked his grandfather, "How can you get up? Your wife has just died." And his grandfather said that according to the tradition, Einat Tzibur Met, our immortality rests in the community. And the life of the community takes priority. Because everything that we are and everything that we know and everything that we believe in is invested in the community. And as long as the community lives, we live. And that's what his grandfather celebrated. And I can think of no better way to celebrate the life of our teacher, Einat Tzibur Met. What he is, what he taught, what he believed in, what he fought for, rests among us in this community. And as this community lives and as it thrives, his memory lives with us as well. I'll ask you please to rise for a song of celebration of a great memory, a great life, and a great legacy. Hallelujah. Unless you got a better one. Please. And a one.
And two.
Shabbat Shalom.